we're talking about don't know. Did we advertise that? I can't remember if I mentioned it or not. But
no, we haven't, but...
Oh, good. We haven't done this before, have we?
Not that I know.
Oh, good. I find it difficult to remember what I had for lunch, much less what I did last time for Melbourne Insight. So our tonight's topic, if all goes well, is don't know. So we're going to be Zenny tonight, and we're looking at the Blue Cliff Record, Case 1. Blue Cliff Record is a Song Dynasty collection of koans, of stories that are used for meditation in the Chan or Zen traditions. And it comes with, you have the story and then you have it elaborated into a commentary. And so this is the opening case of the Blue Cliff Record. And therefore, because it's the first one, it's clearly quite important. So I'll just go through the story first and then we'll unpack the story. Emperor Wu of Liang asked Bodhidharma, "What is the highest meaning of the sacred truths?" Bodhidharma replied, "Empty, not sacred." The emperor said, "Who are you?" Bodhidharma replied, "I don't know." The emperor did not understand. Then Bodhidharma crossed the Yangtze River and came to the kingdom of Wei. Later, the emperor asked Master Chi about this. Master Chi asked, "Does your majesty understand who this man is?" The emperor said, "I don't know." Master Chi said, "He is the Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, transmitting the Buddha mind seal." The emperor felt regretful, so he wanted to send an emissary to invite Bodhidharma to return. Master Chi said, "Your Majesty, don't say that. Even if everyone in the country went after him, he still would not return." So this is the story. Let's have a look at the characters. By the way, if you have any question or comment, just unmute and ask. So let's look at the characters. First of all, Bodhidharma. Now he is regarded as the 28th Indian ancestral teacher of Chan or of Zen. So Buddhism starts in India and then moves to China, and these, let's call it the Zen sect, traces its lineage back to the Buddha. So the Buddha, then you have 28 teachers who are part of that lineage. Bodhidharma is the 28th, and then he goes to China and becomes the first Chinese ancestral teacher. So he's extremely important for the Chinese. He lived in what is now Tamil Nadu, in the extreme south of the subcontinent. So he went to China by the sea route through Southeast Asia, and he arrived in Liang, which was the empire in southern China in the year 527, according to the traditional dating. At that time, China was divided between a northern Wei Empire, which itself was divided into eastern and western, and in the south, the Liang. So Bodhidharma turns up. He's a distinguished foreign teacher, and he's introduced to the Emperor Wu, who's the founding emperor of this dynasty. And Wu was a devout Buddhist. So here's the second character. Then we have Master Chi. He's the emperor's personal Dharma teacher. So very important in the Buddhist establishment. So Emperor Wu of Liang asked Bodhidharma, "What is the highest meaning of the sacred truths?" Bodhidharma replied, "Empty, not sacred." The emperor said, "Who are you?" Bodhidharma replied, "I don't know." So this is the essence of the encounter between these two men. So Wu, the emperor, was an absolute ruler, a tyrant, we would say. He fought his way to the throne through civil war. He started life as a military man, rose to become general, and then in the previous dynasty, it fell apart and Wu ended up the one man standing up after all the battles were over. So he becomes the new emperor. He was personally devout as a Buddhist, even, let's face it, superstitious. He ran an administration that was notorious for its corruption among its high officials and members of the royal family. And it was very careless, if not profligate, with the lives of his people. So he's a devout Buddhist, a devout lay Buddhist, and perhaps not a model of how to practice Dharma in one's personal and professional life. So his question, what is the highest meaning of the sacred truths? So what Wu wants is he wants the essence of the teaching. But the problem is that given the way that he lives, there's no way he could understand it. He probably thinks he can understand it. Because first of all, he is a genuinely learned man who studies the Buddhist texts. He's genuinely devout and he's bright. So he studies the sacred texts and he's surrounded by yes men who are praising his morality and his wisdom. So he's probably convinced that he can understand the highest teaching. And here he gets to talk to an exotic foreigner who impresses everyone that he meets. So why not start at the top? What is the meaning of the sacred truths? Now, this could be a reference to the four truths taught by the Buddha in his first teaching. That's the kind of the obvious thing to someone coming out of the Theravada tradition, or from a Mahayana viewpoint, it might be to the true truths of Mahayana Buddhism, conventional and absolute. I think they are. But in any event, whatever he's getting at, clearly what he wants is the essence of the teaching. Give me the essence of the teaching. So Bodhidharma says, empty, not sacred. So what has Bodhidharma just done? Basically, he's just thrown a bucket of cold water all over the emperor. So no learned debate, no congratulations for being such a great patron of Buddhism. Basically, look, forget about anything being sacred, just empty. So Wu, quite understandably, is shocked. Like nobody's treated him like this before. So what's happening? What's going on? Who is this bloke? Why is he acting like this? And so then comes his second question. And this one, unlike the first, is not scripted. He didn't spend any time thinking about it. This arises spontaneously from his heart. Who are you? Bodhidharma replies, I don't know. Now, put yourself in Wu's position. What can he do with this answer? Like, what is he expected to do with it? Maybe the translator got it wrong. After all, he's speaking through a translator. They're not speaking directly. They have no language in common. Maybe, or actually, Bodhidharma would have learned some Chinese in what is now Indonesia. I forget the name of the kingdom. But there was a kingdom in the area of Indonesia, Singapore, Malaysia, where Buddhists coming from China would spend 2 or 3 years studying Sanskrit before they go into India. And Buddhists coming from India would spend 2 or 3 years studying Chinese before heading off to China. So maybe he did speak some Chinese by this stage. In any event, Wu is still completely confused. I mean, maybe this foreigner is crazy and he doesn't know who he's talking to. Like, doesn't he realize this is the emperor? In any event, Bodhidharma decided that he was wasting his time and he left. The sad thing is, of course, that Bodhidharma was actually answering Wu's questions. He was treating him very, very seriously. In Zen terms, Bodhidharma opened his mouth and showed his liver. He gave Wu everything. But as my old teacher, Sayadaw U Pandita, from a completely different tradition, conservative Theravada in Burma. As U Pandita once remarked, you can play the sweetest music, but the water buffalo still won't dance. And that's the situation that Bodhidharma found himself in. So he leaves. Later, the emperor brought this up to Master Chi and asked him about it. Master Chi asked, "Does your majesty know who this man is?" The emperor said, "I don't know." So we have another "I don't know." You notice we've got two "I don't knows." Now, this one coming out of from Wu, here we see Wu at his best. We see his sincerity appearing out of the morass of his power plays and his violence. He really doesn't know. And he knows that he really doesn't know what's going on. And he's prepared to admit it, even if it makes him look foolish in front of his subjects. So here we get some naive sincerity coming out. So, of course, the obvious question is, what's the difference between Wu's "I don't know" and Bodhidharma's "I don't know"? Is there one? Just to tell a personal story, many years ago when I was in Hawaii doing Zen training with Robert Aitken Roshi, I was working on the first koan, which is Zhaozhou's Mu. Mu meaning is the negative, not, no. And the interview would be, you go in to see the teacher, the Roshi. It's very formal, very Zen, very Japanese. You make your formal bows. And of course, what the Roshi wanted to know is, what is Mu? Show me Mu. And of course, I had no idea what was going on. So I usually went in there and said, "I don't know." And once we got that out of the way, I like to ask him questions about how to do the meditation practice. But one day, I must have been feeling rebellious. What would happen is you have the encounter with the teacher. And when the teacher decided that the interview was over, he'd reach over and he'd ring his bell, tingle, tingle, tingle. And that's the sign for you to get out and for the next person to get in. And the interviews were quite brief. Bang, 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 bang. And so I go in one day. So, what's Mu? I say, "I don't know." And the Roshi is reaching for his bell. And I said, "Wait just a minute. Why is it that when Bodhidharma says, 'I don't know,' that's great. But when I say, 'I don't know,' it's get out of here." And the Roshi just paused with his hand over the bell. And he looked me in the eyes and he said, "Patrick, there is the world of difference between Bodhidharma's 'I don't know' and your 'I don't know.'" And he rang the bell. And out I went. So what is the difference? This is an important question. So Wu is talking to Master Chi, trying to work out what's going on. Now, Master Chi is both very learned in Buddhist matters, like he's the emperor's teacher. That's the top job. And he's a master of politics, because otherwise he wouldn't be the emperor's teacher. And he was also very, very good at extracting money from the state and handing it out to the Buddhist clergy. So he's the man to explain what's really going on in any situation relating to Buddhism. And Master Chi, as usual, because that's his job, has an answer. Master Chi said he is the Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, transmitting the Buddha mind seal. So a Mahasattva is a Sanskrit term meaning great being, a high-ranking bodhisattva. Now, in Mahayana Buddhism, this means a being who's on the way to becoming a Buddha and is so close to being a Buddha that, in effect, the difference doesn't count. So you have these bodhisattva mahasattvas in the Mahayana pantheon, and they're like gods, and they're equivalent, pretty much functionally equivalent to Buddhas. And The particular bodhisattva that she says Bodhidharma is Avalokiteshvara, who is the bodhisattva of compassion. Question, who's the bodhisattva of compassion today? Not a trick question. Come on, folks. Who is it? Anyone thinks it's the Dalai Lama? Is that familiar? That's right. It's the Dalai Lama. So, you know, Master Chi is saying, look, this guy is the equivalent of the Dalai Lama. Now, basically, you know, and the Buddha mind seal here that is being transmitted. This is a Zen concept that refers to the Buddha's awakening. So all of Buddhism begins with the Buddha waking up underneath the Bodhi tree. So he had some kind of experience. And this experience is, as it were, the heart of every Buddhist tradition. And every Buddhist tradition believes it's possible for us to get to this same experience. And all Buddhist practice has that as the ultimate aim. And Zen talks about this as the Buddha mind seal. So it's about the potentiality for awakening that we all have. The emperor felt regretful, as you would. So he wanted to send an emissary to invite Bodhidharma to return. Master Chi said, "Your Majesty, don't say that. Even if everyone in the country went after him, he still would not return." Question, why would he not return? Now, especially when an invitation, quote unquote, by an emperor is a command that invites death if it's refused. So it's an invitation, quote unquote, in name only. So why would he not return? It's not that Bodhidharma would not return, it's he could not return. Because can we return to yesterday? Can we replay that moment in the past when we made a wrong choice and our life headed off in a bad direction? Well, of course we can't. All we've got is now. All we can ever have is now. And no amount of regret or remorse will bring the past back to life. So this is why Bodhidharma would not return. So how can we understand Bodhidharmas don't know? We're finally trying to get to what this is about. Now this brings us to what the Buddha calls ditti, or view. Ditti is a Pali word, in Sanskrit drishti, but always translated view. And for the Buddha, view is very important. So in the Eightfold Path, this is the basic template for the Buddha's teaching, for the training that we are meant to undergo. And the first factor in the Eightfold Path is right view, sammaditthi. So the path begins with right view. If our view is wrong, then the very first step we take in the path is wrong, in the sense that it's taking us in the wrong direction. It's taking us away from awakening, not toward awakening. So getting our view right is, for the Buddha, is very, very important. Now the concept of view is ambiguous. It's ambiguous in English, and we find the same ambiguity in the Buddha's teaching. And he's, of course, speaking in Pali. So the ambiguity is this: what is a view? A view is something I see right in front of me. That's a view. And a view is something I have thought about and reached a conclusion. That's view. So consider this situation. I step outside for some fresh air. Looking up, I can see a bright blue sky, but there are dark clouds rolling in from the west. Suddenly, there's the sound of thunder and rain is pouring down. I see people scatter for shelter as traffic slows and the streets fill with water. Now, in all of this, what I am describing is a view, quote unquote. Now, as I see this, the rain reminds me of all the strange things that have been happening to weather patterns in recent years. I've read about growing concerns about climate change and potential catastrophic consequences. And I'm thinking about what is the best strategy to limit average global warming? Should we go nuclear? Or should we focus entirely on renewables? Now, in all of this, what I'm describing is a view, quote unquote. But you can see there's a big difference between the two views. The first is confined to actual immediate experience. It is direct and experiential. And the Buddha calls, when he's specifying this, the Buddha calls it ditta. The second moves away from immediate experience to create a complex narrative based on abstract thinking. And this is conceptual in its nature. And the Buddha calls this ditthigata. And while they can be both called view, actually they're very, very different. And this is where we get a sense of why Bodhidharma and Wu are talking at cross purposes, why they're not connecting. Bodhidharma is speaking from direct view. Wu is speaking from conceptual view. So when Wu asks about the highest meaning of the sacred truths, what he wants is a discussion which is learned, mystical, doctrinal. A discussion where he can impress with his knowledge of the texts and convince himself that he's a wonderful ruler who is on the way to awakening. When Bodhidharma answers empty, not sacred, he is saying what is immediately clear to him here and now. In a sense, what's right in front of his eyes. Right here, right now, experienced events are coming and going according to conditions. This conversation with the emperor is undulating according to conditions. And there's nothing behind it propping it up. So it's empty. Now, if we say sacred, we're suggesting something set apart from the ordinary, something mysterious, something mystical that only the elect can experience, only the few. But there's nothing mysterious about two old men having a chat. Empty, not sacred. Just a warm day in the palace at Yankan, which is the capital city, with the breeze shifting the curtains and the coolness of the stone floor. Do you see the difference between the two views? Is that clear thus far? Now, if you think about direct view is probably the most obvious aspect of our experience. So right now, I'm sitting here on a cushion, feeling the touch of the body against the cushion and the pad on the floor, feeling the contact of the earphones, um, seeing the screen in front of me, and beyond it, seeing the room, feeling the temperature. It's a bit humid this evening. We just had some rain, and it's warm in civilized Brisbane. I won't say disparaging remarks about Victoria. I'll refrain from that. Uh, all of this is clear. It's obvious. And yet, how easily my attention will slip away from this direct view into conceptual view, the world as I think it to be, the world as I perceive it to be, and how easily we are seduced by conceptual view. And of course, all meditators are very familiar with this. So have you ever had the experience of sitting in meditation, tracking a meditation object, which is quite clear, quite obvious, like just as an example, the movements of your breathing, the sensations of the body, and then suddenly realizing that you've been lost in thought for the past 5 minutes and didn't even know it? Did you recognize that slide from direct to conceptual view as it was happening? Or did you just figure it out later on? Once you realized you were inside the world of conceptual view, the world of thought and perception and conviction, did you take that world to be real? Did you believe that what is really going on is what you are thinking about? Did you find that world of conceptual view even more emotionally compelling than the world of direct view? Most of us, the answer to these questions is yes. Overall, we prefer to live in a world of conceptual view rather than the world of direct view. We take the world created by our conceptual views to be real, even more real than the world of direct view. And it's certainly more attractive to us. So why is that? Well, perhaps the most obvious thing is that the world of conceptual view gives us meaning. It creates stories that explain to us who we are and what our role in the world is. These stories give us order and they give us certainty. In this world, in the conceptual world, we know what is going on. From the Buddha's perspective, this means that the world of conceptual view gives us much more opportunity for clinging, what he calls upadana, appropriation, to take something as one's own. It gives us more opportunity for clinging, and it gives us more satisfaction in our clinging. So when we cling to the stories that we tell about ourselves as truly explaining me and my world, when we do that, at least we know where we stand, or at least we think we know. And this is the problem, because do we really know? Or are we sacrificing the vividness of actual experience for the virtual reality of concept? So as a ordinary mundane example, if we're looking at direct view, this is a direct and immediate seeing of something. It might be, I'm doing my meditation practice. Now I'm with my meditation object. And then now I'm swept away by thinking. And then now I realize I'm lost in thought and I'm faced with the choice of whether or not to come back to the meditation object. Bang, 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 bang. Clear, direct, obvious. Conceptual view. This is an abstract view or conviction, like an ideology, that explains the world and its workings to me. So it might be with exactly the same experience. I am the kind of person who is too distracted to be able to meditate successfully. Other people can meditate successfully, but because of my background and my unique personality, I can't. Have you ever been tempted to believe that? You notice how we are so easily seduced by a conceptual view, even when it is painful. And perhaps this is because we have a clear story that stars me as the main character and my fate as the main concern. And this gives us something obvious to cling to identify with. It's much harder to cling to the flow of directly experienced phenomena. It's possible, but it's much harder. It's much easier to cling to our imagined world where I, quote unquote, star in my own perpetual drama. So this makes conceptual view so seductive. Conceptual view also has the bonus of giving us stability. So conceptual view comes out in our beliefs, our convictions. This belief that I have is right today. And it was right last year. And it will be right next year. Have you ever made that move? Even if this belief gives me pain, for example, it might be a belief in my own inadequacy. At least we have the comfort provided by certainty. I know this is true. So this is why, for example, despair is so seductive, precisely because it gives us certainty. When we are in despair, for example, of the future, then we are convinced we know what the future will hold. So we hang on to that certainty even when it brings us pain. Of course, the obvious fact is, as proven again and again and again and again and again in our experience, actually, we don't know what the future will hold. But we can create an ideology in which we know it. And that certainty is very seductive. So this brings us to not knowing. The world of don't know is a world of immediacy and simplicity. Now, the first thing to look at is living in this world does not mean that we cannot accomplish anything. So if we look at the two main characters in this story, Bodhidharma did not know, but he accomplished a huge amount. So his legacy is Zen Buddhism. And we still study his life and his teachings today. Emperor Wu knew, and he worked really hard all of his life, as a soldier, as a politician, as a student of Buddhism. And his whole dynasty collapsed during his own lifetime. So living in the world of don't know does not mean that we don't actually do anything in the world. In fact, it can make us a lot more effective. Now, this world of direct view is immediate, intimate, because it's not about anything. It's simply what it is. The world of conceptual view is always about something else, something separated in time, in space, in identity. Now we get a sense of what this means if you look at the Buddha's teaching on nimitta, which can be translated as sign. A concept is like a sign in that it points toward something else. So it's like a menu. Let's say we're thinking of checking out a new restaurant. So what do? We bring up the website and we can study the images, the menu, the different reviews. And all this information provided on the website promises us a particular kind of experience when we go there to eat. But the website can never convey the felt experience of eating the meal at that place. When let's say we go there, or we eat there, and afterwards we provide a review to the website, it would not occur to us to rate it according to the quality of its website. It's the felt experience of eating there. It's the whole package of design, service, food, price. That's what we rate. And no amount of studying a website will provide that. Now, the restaurant's website may be very useful. It may give us a very accurate picture of what going there would be like. Alternatively, the website may be so wildly inaccurate that we might be tempted to think that we've come to the wrong address. So we could regard the website as useful, as useless, or even irrelevant, as we would have checked this place out regardless of what the website said. But no matter how we rate the website, the fact remains that the experience of eating at the restaurant is not the same as the experience of studying the website. It cannot be. The experience of studying a restaurant's website is just an experience of studying the restaurant's website. Simple, direct, obvious. So, looking at it from Bodhidharma's perspective, which world do we live in? Do we live in a world defined by websites? Or do we live in a world that embraces both the felt experience of studying the website and the felt experience of eating out at the restaurant? The world of don't know is the world where we are clear that what we know from the website is not the feel of eating out. The spiciness of the curry, the hardness of the chair, the sound of conversations around us, the nagging doubt of whether we should have ordered something else. This is the world of don't know. And you notice that it's alive and it's unfinished. It's moving into something else. So this brings us into the question of how do we practice don't know? I think in terms of our meditation practice, For me, our relationship to the body is really important for this. So we've pointed out how the world of direct view is not about anything. It's just what it is, here and now. Whereas the world of conceptual view is always about something else. Something separated from us in time, in space, in quality. So if we're going to practice I don't know, or practice don't know, this involves grounding ourselves on something that helps us to be simply present. And probably the best place for that project is what the Buddha calls kaya gata sati, mindfulness immersed in body. So I think about the activity of sitting and tracking breathing and or body sensations. Now, breathing and body sensations are not about anything at all. So first of all, breathing and body sensations are not telling us a story. They are radically simple: movement and touch. In contrast, the stories that distract us are always about something removed from this immediate experience. Even, for example, even if it's simply a commentary on this immediate experience, a comment about this immediate experience has just taken us away. A very common one would be, I'm sitting, I'm meditating, breathing, body sensation, and the thought pops up, I think this is going very well. So that thought popping up, that's our entry into the world of conceptual view. And you notice how it's about something else, about that something that didn't need a story, but we just, boom, put a story on top of it. And then we decide what's most important is the story. Oh, good for me. It's going well. Fantastic. So breathing and body sensations are not telling us a story. They're just what they are. And of course, secondly, breathing and body sensations are always exactly now. They do not occur in the past. They are not an investment for the future. They're just now. And you notice that the world of conceptual view, this is a world defined by past and future. Things were like this before. They will be like this again. Or alternatively, they better not be like this again. But in either case, it's defined by time, by past and future. Now, when we learn to be grounded in the physical world, it's much more easy to recognize that our thoughts, our concepts, our perceptions are just that. They are thoughts, concepts, and perceptions. That's all they are. Now, these thoughts, concepts, and perceptions may well be very useful in some contexts, like the website or the restaurant. And they may be very damaging in other contexts. But whatever they are, they remain just movements in the mind, nothing else. So when we're grounded in the physical world, we learn to be intimate with the felt flow of experience. And as we get better at this, we also learn to be grounded, to be intimate with the felt flow of mental experience. In other words, the recognition that a thought is just a thought. That's all it is. A feeling is just a feeling. An emotion is just an emotion. And when we become intimate with the flow of experience, we can start to learn to relax into the uncertainty of not knowing. We discover that unlike Wu, we do not need the security blanket of having an answer to every question. we find we can trust the universe to show us not what needs to be done here and now. And in this way, we can get a sense of Bodhidharma's don't know and even discover his compassion for a world gone completely mad. Okay, that's it for tonight. Any questions or comments?